So, welcome back to the Genteel Lady. We're now on to building the wings. Now, this is a very similar process to building the tailplane. We don't have to do any of the cross strutting. So, what you're going to need to find out in the kit, let me show you all the bits and pieces that we're going to need to find out to start off with. And there's a couple of things I just want to warn you of, or give you best guidance on, to make it. So remember, we're going to be building the left wing first. We're going to be building the inner panel and then the outer panel, because actually they're four separate panels. So you've got left inner, left outer, right outer, and then we're going to be joining them all together. So primarily at the moment we are just going to be making the left inner panel, and then I'm going to go on to the right inner panel. So let me show you what you need to get the basic start of the wing going. So first thing you're going to need is this trailing edge, and you can tell that it is the inner panel because it's got this little curve here. So we're not pinning that down at the moment, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment. Now the other thing you're going to need two of these spars. This is for the main spar. They are 6mm by 3mm. You need two of those. At the moment, don't worry about there's a sub spar just here, which is 3mm by 3mm square. We're not adding that at the moment. That's the first top tip for this wing build. The other thing you're going to need is this. This is for the leading edge, and this is 6mm by 6mm square. So we've got those bits. The other thing you're going to need for the main panel is going to be this wing brace. Now let me show you, because you've got two for the outer panels and one for the mid panel, and you'll note that the main wing panel is longer. So I've just cut that one out first. Remember, with all this stuff, put it back somewhere where you can put it safe. I normally put it back in the box. So we've got our wing joiner, which is going to go there. And the other thing we need to sort out is we're going to need to just look at the plans. So there's three R1s. There is 4 R2s, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. There is 4 R3s. And then if you get those out and ready. Now, one other little top tip here is that at some stage we are going to be sheeting. Let me show you. We are going to be sheeting this area here. It's top sheeting only. So what I'm going to do is I have just gone across with a pencil just to remind myself, because the other thing is that then all I'm going to, when I've done it, just reminds me, because obviously all the ribs are going to be away, and it's just an easier way of remembering what to do. So first thing we've got to do is let's get these ribs cut out, get them sanded like we did the parts on the tailplane, and then I'll get back to you. So a couple of little tips on the ribs. Now rib 1, you'll notice you've got this tiny little wedge on here, and that's got to stay on there. So just be very careful when you're lifting that off. And also what I've actually done is I've got a very small square. This is a 3mm by 3mm file, and what I've actually done is I've just quickly given that a couple of wipes there, like so. That's just to clear that little laser nobule that's left behind. So just be careful when you're cleaning up your ribs. So it's like this little piece here. Just make sure that you're actually got your finger braced next to it, and then just give it just a couple of little wipes with that, just to keep it nice and clean. If you don't get those clean, it means it's not going to sit down properly on your spar. So what we've got to do now is think about the whole process that we're going to actually assemble this, because what we've got to include in this build is the fact that we're going to be adding our dihedral braces. And I did forget to mention, what you actually want to do is get both your dihedral braces. So this is the the tip one, so that goes on the outer of the wing, and this is the main one. So what we're going to have to do is we will have to adjust the ribs, just trim a little bit of the ribs to fit, but I'll show you that as we go along. So let's start assembling the wing and getting all our pieces ready. Oh, one last thing. Now this is your rear spar, and it's been lovely and cut, laser cut. My advice is I would just get your ribs and just there again, just pop your rib in just to make sure that they actually fit in. See, mine fit in lovely like so, but just make sure that all your ribs fit nicely, and it's worth doing because that will make the actual construction. I mean, to be honest with you, I've already checked mine, and typical Angel Wing designs, all the rib cutting is absolutely superb, but it's worth just checking. Okay, so let me just show you the process of how I'm now going to actually build this wing, and I'll talk you through how I'm actually going to slowly assemble it. So let me show you. Now I have got just rib 2 here fitted properly. All I'm going to do is I'll tell you why I'm starting at rib 2, because we're going to do a little bit of jiggery pokery here with these ribs. So what I want to do is I want to make the rest of the structures first. So I've got my trailing edge in place, I've got my lower spar, and I've just used 2 pins. I'm not a big fan of doing that, I've got to be honest with you. I normally use a little bit of blue tack either side, but because this is a development model, I might need to make some jiggling anyway. So I'm just going to slowly work my way out with all of these right up until I get to this R3 here. So this is the R3 where this template is going to fit, and I'm going to fit that one there, and I'm going to fit all the others along, and then I'm going to slowly get back to you. Now, little tip here, if for any reason you find there's a little bit of a restriction, so if I pop that in there like so, so that's seated in the trailing edge, and bring that down and just make sure that everything fits. If it doesn't, I mean, the Angel Wing kits are absolutely superb, but you might just have to do a little bit of filing just either side to get them just to fit down neatly. Don't be tempted, if you've got that in place, don't be tempted just to smash that straight down onto that spar, because if it's a very tight fit, you'll end up breaking the rib. So it's always a good thing is just to check your fit before, and in fact what you can do is before you fit it, with the top spar that we're going to fit later, you can just check the top and the bottom as well, because it's better to try and adjust the top and the bottom now before you go in. I doubt you're going to have any problems, but that's a golden tip for any building of a wing in this sort of construction, is check all these slots as you go along. So good little tip here, I have just added my glue and I'm happy with that lined up. Now, little tip, just get your ruler and stand your ruler next to the spar like so, and then that means that that rib is going to be standing square. So I just slide it up there like that, and then that's left in place. Right, next stage, I have glued all my rib 2s. I've done all my rib 3s except the very end one at the tip, or the end of that section, and I haven't glued any of the rib 1s. Now the next step, let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to glue the first rib 1 because that is going to fit onto there like so. Now the next thing we're going to need to do is, we're not going to be fitting these ribs as is. I am going to cut my rib in half, and let me show you exactly where we're going to be cutting this rib. So let me show you. So I'm going to cut this rib at the back, just there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to glue just the front piece in first. So we're going to cut these two ribs at the back section here, and then I'm going to glue the fronts in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to glue this front in upright like so, and then when we glue this one in place, I'm actually going to use a template that's going to be in your kit, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to slope these slightly at that angle so that when the other half two join, it takes in this dihedral. So I'm going to slowly talk you through this now, and then we'll then go on to doing the back bit and then what we're doing next. Right, this first R1 I've cut, and then I'm going to glue this one in place, and that's going to pop into its place like so. Just make sure that we've got that square that we have there like so. Now I am just going to add a cheeky pin here right at the very end just to hold that in place. Now the second rib, which is the end rib, I again going to glue this one in place. Now what we've got to remember here is we've got to add the slight slope to accommodate the fact that these are going to be slightly angled, matching each other. So I've got my template, which you'll have in your kit. It's not a massive one, but it will make a difference. So you can see there, I'm now just also going to get a cheeky pin just to hold this in place, and I will recheck this angle, but I'm not too concerned at the moment because we're going to get something to fix this in place. Right, now this is one of the times when I would suggest that super glue or Sino would be the best thing to use. So I'm just going to pop that in place and just add a very quick dab of Sino. And then just check this angle. That's not quite right, is it, Nick? So what we're going to do is make sure that that is all matched up. Get the angle right. Make sure it's sitting on the spar. Oh, boom. Okay, oh, right. Okay, now. Right, we're just going to check the angle. That's lovely. Now, those two are secure. So the next thing we're going to do is, I now have my top spar, which I'm now going to glue and add. And when I've added this top spar, then I'm going to add this dihedral brace, and then we will adjust the ribs to suit. So that's the next step. Let me just get my see, I'm just holding this rib up, making sure they've got the spar is all sitting nicely. Now, if you feel any resistance popping this in, then this is where you stop, go back and check. But I'm very, very happy with that. There we go. Now, that's a very nice sandwich, and I'm now going to let that dry. I'm going to let this dry, and then the next thing we'll do is we're going to add this like so, and then all we're going to do is we're just going to sand this. I wouldn't cut it, I would sand this. So what we're going to look to do is take that amount off that rib, because the idea is that's going to sit in there, and then that rib is going to sit in there. Now, one little tip here with these ribs, let me just pop this one back to show you. Can you see that we talked about the little wedge that's on the end? So when you actually fit this, when you come to fit this rib, make sure that you've got that, the top piece is sitting flush like so, because that then allows the sheet to have a nice finish. Cool, gonna let that dry and we'll get back to it. I've just glued my dihedral brace, and all I'm going to do is just to get a really good joint, I'm just going to put those on there, because there's no doubt that this stuff actually goes off quicker and is better when it's clamped together. So I'm now just going to leave that to dry, and then the next thing is we're just going to infill these two, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. Right, there we go. There's the 3 ribs with the dihedral brace. We're now all ready to go for the next stage. So the next stage, I am going to suggest that we do exactly the same the other end. Let me show you. So I'm going to do exactly the same with this rib. Is I am just going to sit this one, I'm going to clamp this in place like so. So first thing is I'm going to cut the rib at the back, so we're cutting the rib this side. I'm just going to fit that in, and then add the template like so, and then glue the rest of the rib in here. Right, so remember, this is rib 3 that I'm adding to the outside. Now remember, we have another dihedral brace, so this one, and the idea is that this is a slightly steeper angle on this one, so we just got to make sure that we get this one at the right angle like so. And then make sure that when we've added the ply plate that we get this one angled as well. So just remember, don't forget the dihedral brace at this end. Nearly forgot it myself. So there we go, dihedral brace was added, clamped for a little while, and then I've added the rear of the rib, remembering just to use your template to make sure that everything is correct. Now, the next thing we have to do is we are going to add the leading edge, which is 6mm by 6mm balsa. Okay, so we have our 6mm by 6mm, and the idea is that this is just going to glue straight onto here. Now, what I normally do, particularly as this is square and it's a little bit tricky adding the glue to every piece, here's a little tip here, particularly because this is square. I've got this exactly where I want it in position wise. Now, if I mark with a very light pencil down every one, like so, just literally mark a very faint line following along the rib where the rib glows, like so. That is where I add my glue. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some glue to every one of these. If you can, I might just drop a little bit on the top, but quite frankly with the alphatic glue what I would do is I was going to glue where all I've marked. I'm going to slide that into place like so, and then because this is very good, the glue is very good for sanding, I might just hold that in place and then just add a little bit of fillet across the top. But I normally find that doing this method, so I'm not going to pin this, I'm going to push this up against the rib like so, so not massive strength, and then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to get some pins like so, and basically I'm using the pin as a clamp. So that's your next procedure. Let's get this leading edge glued on. But there's a little top tip for you for getting the glue in the right place. Well, I hope your first wing panel is going really well. On this sheet here, it might look slightly different on yours because remember this is a pre-production kit, but what we're looking for is you're looking to cut one of these out and one of these, and this is our top sheeting. Now, right, so this is where your sheet goes. Now, I just had to trim mine just a little bit, and all I did was mine was extended over just a little bit where I wanted, so I just held the ruler across it and I just sanded mine just to shape, but that now fits on there like so, and you can see the reason for those little nubbins. Now we've got a lovely smooth finish here, and exactly the same for this sheet here. So I'll tell you what I'm going to try and do is I'm now going to glue these in place, and if you can, I mean I'm lucky I've got a few little bits of weight, but or if not we'll just try and tack some pins, but just use as little pins as possible if you can, but that is just going to drop in there like so. So there we go, I have got my sheet on. Just remember to run some glue along the front of the sheet and along the edge of the sheet, not just glue the ribs. And I'm now going to leave that some time just to dry completely, and then we can then start talking about the outer wing panel. Congratulations, looks like you've just made yourself your first wing. Right, I have got my first wing panel off the bench. Now the only other thing we have to do now is to insert the 3mm by 3mm square spar, and that is going to go across there like so. My advice is I would just check each one, which I'm sure you would have done at the start anyway, but see, look, I'm checking each one like so, and they're all fitting in. Then I'm going to add a little bit of superphatic underneath all of these, and I'm going to pop this in place. Okay, so I've got my intermediate spar in, and oh look, you'll notice I've just added this little, we call this a gusset or triangular strength. Now, and then we are going to talk about the outer panel. Now the outer panel basically in construction is exactly the same as the inner panel, but we've got no sheeting to worry about. We've got something that goes on the end called the tip section, which I will show you as we go along. So what you need to do is get OR1 to OR10, just clean all the ribs up, get your trailing edge, and make sure that you've cleaned all the little bits of nubbing off of that. And you're going to need 2 spars. Now the spars, just remember that when you look down at the wing, let me show you. When you look down at the wing, it sort of tips back slightly, so that the top and bottom spars are going to need a very, very slight angle cut into. Not going to be hypercritical if you get it wrong, because we can always sand that shape out anyway, but to make a really nice neat fit, that's worth just looking at. It's not a big angle. And the other thing to remember is obviously we're going to have to do the reverse angle, because this particular part of the wing is going to be lifted up at some stage in what we're going to be calling dihedral. But let's go through the basic wing. I say you should be able to do this dead easy now, because it's exactly the same as the main panel and we've got no sheeting. So let's crack on. Okay, so same thing as before. So we're just going to, I'm not going to glue in yet OR1, that's outer rib 1. I'm just going to glue all the other ribs in place, including OR10, and then we'll talk about OR1 when I've glued all the top ribs in. Now this might not be the official way of doing it, but this is how I'm going to do mine. So we've obviously got to allow for the fact that that is going to be joining there from the other wing. So what I'm going to do is exactly as I did before. I'm going to cut the rib at the back like we did before. Then I'm going to glue this into place, remembering that we need this angle this time. And so I'm going to be angling back like so, and then I am then going to, obviously what I'm then going to do is I'm then going to add the top spar like so, and then making sure that then I can then fit this to the end rib when it comes to the actual final fitting. Right, I have got the outer panel off. I've added the subspar, but you'll notice that the OR1 is still missing. So what we're going to do is, because obviously the dihedral brace is on this one. Now, we are not gluing these together at the moment, and I'm going to explain why in a moment. Let me tell you the process of just getting this rib sorted, because what we're going to do is, after I've got OR1 sorted, these two are going to be taken apart again, and we're going to need to sand some aerodynamic shapes to these. And believe me, it's a lot easier if they are in 2 bits than if it's joined like this. So let me show you what I'm going to do. This is going down on the bench firm. This is getting jacked up to the right angle, which I'll tell you as we go along. When I'm happy, I'm just going to drop that OR1 in place. I'm going to glue it to the trailing edge. I'm going to glue it to the sub spar, not to this bit of the spar. Then I'm going to gently remove everything. That will then sit in place ready for us to be able to do all our sanding and our cleaning, and then we can crack on to doing the fuselage. So I've got the right hand side to do. Right, there is the outer wing panel finished, and as you can see, what I've done here, got my strengthening fillet in, I've got the lower spar in, and then all I've done is I've got this gap here at the moment. Just be careful because it's a little bit flexible, but I've got that there just to allow for the main panel to join in. Now we've done that, the only other thing you need to do is to add the tip sections, which I've done here. There will be a little drawing about making sure you get this flat angle on the outside properly. Top tip, don't use super glue if you can avoid it, because we're going to need to do a little bit of shaping on that, and it will make it harder if it's super glue. The next video is going to be all about how we're going to sand and finish and get lovely shapes for all these structures. So thanks very much, and I'll see you shortly.